Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my next guest.
Dark Souls fan.
What is going on?
What's up?
Me and my friends used to feed
Blood
to this little
Dark Souls fan.
in our neighborhood.
Yeah.
And we'd lock arms around her and go, nightmare, 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 nightmare.
Hunters.
Hunter.
Nightmare, 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 nightmare.
Blood hunters. Blood hunter. Blood.
Nightmare, 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 nightmare.
You can't do that.
It actually cured her.
Calling Dark Souls the best Souls game.
Oh.
All right, let's get into it. And I want to start off by getting my words very particular here, because saying that I don't like Bloodborne, it's just not true. Bloodborne is a great game. No, you know what? It's a fantastic game. It is. It's absolutely fantastic. But I just don't care for it. I really don't. And it's such a shame, because fans of this game talk about one of the most deep and intense gaming experiences that you can play. And the thing is, when I'm bored and I want to play a Souls game, I'll boot up Dark Souls 1, 2 and 3, and I've beat those games like 20 or 40 times each. But with Bloodborne, I don't think I really felt like going out my way to play Bloodborne. I've beat it 4 times, and they were all for like video stuff, and that is such a shame. Like, I really don't want to feel like that. So the point of this video is for me to try and pick apart what I really don't like here, and hopefully by the end of this video, I can understand it better and maybe learn to appreciate it more because of that. However, one thing I think everyone can agree on is that the best thing about this game is sponsored content. Sponsorinoed by MSI Areno. MSI sent me one of their desktop PCs, and it's a compact, sexy beast. I don't have a Scooby-Doo how to build PCs, so it's really nice to have one built by the winners of the European Hardware Community Award for Best Desktop PC. Wow, congrats guys. I really do like the compact size while still having amazing specs, but even if I did know how to change and upgrade those PC parts, these PCs are built to be easily upgradable yourself, or you can do what I did and tell the sweaty geeks at MSI how to customize your order. Holy shit! Look at this little dude! Jokes aside, I think this is a really good way to go if you're looking to get into PC gaming. They'll have something for everyone. For example, I really wanted to have really good internet connection speeds for uploading videos, so you can get either a 2.5 gigabyte a second LAN connection or even a Wi-Fi 6E card, so that's perfect for me. Plus, it has an Nvidia graphics card, so it has Shadowplay, the same recording software that I use in my videos. I've been using this little sexy beast for around about a month now, and I'm extremely happy with it. If I'd have got this PC years ago when I was just starting to get into PC gaming, it would have saved me so much hassle. And before I end this ad, I'm sure a lot of you might be asking, what does MSI mean? Great question. Stands for the best desktop PCs you can buy. Thank you MSI for sponsoring the video. Links below. Alright, so even though I'm wanting to get into the stuff I don't like in this game, we have to start with the positives here, and it's an absolutely banging positive. I have to talk about the combat first. The combat here is that absolute crackhead shit. The combat here is so speedy, so slick. It's an absolute treat to play once you understand what the hell you're looking at. And when I talk about Souls games and the speed they have, I always bring up the weapon rollout test, and this one just smashes Dark Souls out. Have you seen that? That is absurdly quick, and what this does is that it allows you to risk it all on some big ass combos, because if you play well, then boom, you can roll out whenever you like. That is absolutely amazing to me. And you'll want to get stuck into some enemies with your big ass combos because of perhaps the best combat feature put into any Souls game, in my opinion: the rally system. Essentially, when you're hit by an attack, your health keeps a portion of the damage done as a little orange bar that goes down over time. However, if you attack before the orange bar goes away, you regain some of your lost health. This is pure fucking genius in my opinion. It strikes so faithfully at the core experience of what Souls combat should be like. It's like, man, you got some big ass bitch boss slapping your fucking cock off, but rather than playing like a little bitch, you can be like, nah, fuck it, I'm gonna risk it all on some crazy hyper fuck you aggression right back at the boss to make up for that lost damage done to you. Risking it all on a crazy difficult fight goes against every one of your instincts, but doing it anyway and pulling off the dub is nothing short of incredible. It really is. And outside of boss fights, the rally system also has a really nice place too. I absolutely love that in normal leveling, if you get hit by some attack or some ambush, you can run right back into that fight and take your health back from those enemies, rather than just running away, then using that Estus later, which you really should have been saving for that next boss. The rally system for me is a perfect addition, and it's really astonishing to me as to why this hasn't come back in the other Souls games. It's seriously perfect. It feeds right into the balance of the risk and safety in a game where those lines are strewn so thin. There is very little room for mistakes in these games, but if you're willing to risk even more to make up for your mistake, you can certainly try, and that is the perfect Souls combat feeling. And as for my positives of this game, that's it. Nah, seriously, that's it for me. Well, maybe apart from other minor stuff, like the music being great, but you know, as far as major features go, yeah, that's really all I like here. And this is where we're going to start getting a bit controversial, a bit spicy here, boys. Because for a lot of Bloodborne fans, there is one other major feature here, which is by far the best one for them. And that's... Oh god, so here we go. And I'm just going to state my piece right now, and I'll talk and explain more as we go. I really don't like Bloodborne's setting. It fucking stinks, man. Like, it's never come across to me as cool or gothic or whatever. I don't know, maybe I'm just a boomer. I'm really not trying to play it up here, guys. I genuinely just cringe looking at it, man. Okay, and first up, I just want to say, if you like this setting, I'm not calling you cringe. That's not what I'm getting at. People like different things, and some people who are really into like horror and like dark shit, they'll probably absolutely love this. But for me, and I'm willing to bet actually a lot more people than you think, it just fucking stinks. And I think what it comes down to is that it's just extremely one-dimensional in its presentation. And what I mean by that is that you get the impression right away. I actually really love when you first walk into Yharnam and the sounds and environments echoing around this drab city. All the cackles and the coughs of the citizens in their homes make the world, and all the little narrow streets, oh, it's like pure terror. Really cool. But as you sink your teeth in further, that's all it has to show for itself. You get that really strong first impression, but then it puts it in your fucking face on a loop for 5 hours. Blood, nightmare, curse, blood, the hunter's beast. And okay, here's the thing. I always do that little joke of, oh, blood of nightmare's curse, or the hunter's blood of the beast of the nightmare's curse. Okay, but really, it honestly, it kind of is like that. And I reckon this is honestly the main reason I don't like playing this game. It's this whole edgy shit. And again, at first, you see all these really sharp looking designs and all these like, really black and dark and architectural designs everywhere. But then you realise, oh shit, it's fucking everywhere. And you put it all together for 5 hours in your fucking face for 5 hours. And it's just like blood, nightmare, curse, blood, nightmare, curse. Like fucking Jesus, what? Now, of course, again, like I said earlier, if you like that, well, that's really cool, good on you. Because the thing is, if you really like that edgy stuff, well, it being right in your face for 5 hours on a loop is probably a good thing. You probably absolutely love that. But you have to understand that there's probably quite a lot of people out there, myself included, if you don't like just a shred of that, well, there's no escape from it. Because it's not just the dialogue, it's everything. It's what you're looking at 100% of the time. On screen, everything is blood, nightmare, curse. It's just everywhere. Not just the dialogue, it is the game. It's in your face, constantly, for 10 hours, on a fucking loop. And it gets so old so fucking quick. It ends up just being cringe. To me, it really does, unfortunately. So yeah, thinking about it, this really is the main one for me. This whole world setting is a huge love it or hate it thing. Again, I want to reiterate, when I get that first impression, I loved it. Like, halfway through the game, what happens? You kill like an old god, and after killing it, boom, you start noticing the world for what it is. You start noticing all these creatures and all these entities that were there the whole time, but now you've been subjected to the madness of it. You can't unsee it. Yeah, that is so cool. But as I said before, it's so one-dimensional in the respect of it presents a really cool setting and just puts it in your face on fucking loop for 10 hours. Because now, instead of going blood of nightmare's curse, we go, oh, the madness of the dream of the nightmare madness. So, great job, guys. Love it. But I don't know, what am I missing here? I don't know, guys, seriously, tell me in the comments, because I just don't get it. Like, seriously, maybe I'm just a boomer. I mean, make no mistake, I do like horror and I do like Lovecraft stuff, especially in games like Darkest Dungeon. That did it awesomely there. But here, at least to me, it never came across as deep. It was just edgy. And I'm sorry, but you edgy emo boys and girls who love this game, you're too scary for me, man. You lot sit outside in the mall car park, smoking your cigarettes, listen to Linkin Park on repeat. It's too scary for me, man. But mind you, after hearing it from that way, I don't really care to get into it now. You scruffy fucking emo should use that edge to cut your hair, you So, as I said before, combat-wise, this game is solid as a rock. It's all really fast-paced and encourages high progression. However, all combat interactions are all conveyed through your character build, and a lot of people bring up that this game has a very shallow end of character diversity and builds. And first up, when people point this out, a common response is, oh okay, I know the game only has like 26 weapons, but you can transform those weapons into a new one, so actually you have double, you have like 52 total weapons. And I almost would agree with that, until you realise and think about what a normal average player does when playing this game. As far as I've seen, and as far as I can tell, a normal player playing this game will just tend to stick with the one transformation 95% of the time. Players who pick the Hunter Axe, for example, just love sticking to the two-handed transform state, and that's it. Players who pick the Sword Cleaver, like me, just stick to the untransformed state because it's lightning quick. Ludwig's Holy Moonlight Sword, like, who the fuck's not using that in the transformed state? Now, of course, when I say this, I know some people are gonna say, oh well, that's just down to the player. I use both styles when I use my weapons equally, and that's on the player for not wanting to use both styles. And again, I would almost agree with that, but what I'm saying is the problem with transformed weapons is that one transformation will tend to be better than the other. Yes, you do have a choice, and that's great. It's better to at least have a choice than no choice whatsoever. But as I said, a normal player in normal gameplay will just choose the path of least resistance, and they will see the Sword Cleaver untransformed do crazy lightning quick damage, and then they'll transform it and see it do the same damage but slower. So yeah, and that goes for pretty much every weapon. One transformation will tend to be better than another, and as such provides little to no excuse to be constantly trying to do both transformations. So to me, that's why transforming weapons never really added like the variety that people say it does. Because yeah, I suppose there are two weapons for each weapon, but realistically, come on now, most of us are just using one of them anyway, so it's kind of there but not there at the same time. So we've talked about one set of weapons, but what about the other set of weapons that add diversity? The guns. And unfortunately for me, guns in Bloodborne are done very, very poorly here. First up, the role the guns are meant to play. They're meant to be a parry weapon, but parrying with guns is just inherently flawed. So there's two big reasons here. Firstly, when you shoot the gun, the enemies stagger. So therefore, it doesn't really reward good timing on the parries. Like say for example, you're against an enemy and you're gonna risk a parry. It's quite risky, but you might get a big damage for it, so you decide to take the risk. You try a parry and oh geez, you went early. But here, it doesn't matter if you go early because you shoot the gun and they flinch. So, oh well, it's still my turn. I'll just spam it, I'll just press it again, and you get the parry. So there's no punishment for like mistiming it. And I'm sure many people watching can agree that there have been times when you wanted to pull a parry off and you just spammed shoot and you got it eventually. And because of that, there's a little risk for a huge reward. So it just doesn't work there. And secondly, this whole scenario also works in complete reverse. Say again, you got an enemy and you want to risk it all on a big parry. The enemy attacks and you time your shot perfectly. You know you have. You shoot the bullet, but the bullet misses. So you did everything perfectly. You pressed the parry button at the correct time, but you still didn't get rewarded for it. So the gun as a parry tool, it just doesn't cut it for me. I just don't like it. But what about the second purpose of a gun as a defensive weapon? Well, it's still dog shit, because the damage just doesn't cut anywhere near to reasonable here. And before I go any further, yes, of course, I know you can go online and find a guide on how to min-max a gun build to do actually half decent damage. And yeah, That's cool, but as far as reviews go, I think it's good to assume that the player isn't a walking fucking Wikipedia article. You have to assume that little Tommy has just picked up the game for the first time. He doesn't know what the fuck's going on. He has a cool gun, he wants to shoot it. Oh, it does fuck all damage, apart from parry shit. Yes, again, I know little Tommy can go into YouTube and find the most epic gun build in Bloodborne. But no, as far as the game itself is concerned, the role of the gun is to parry enemies. And this is why the game has such a huge problem with diversity. First of all, it just strips back any sort of encouragement to play anything other than melee. But secondly, the problem is that they clearly put a lot into this. I mean, the game has like, what, 26 weapons? But then you have 11 guns. Almost half of the total amount of main weapons. So here it is, guys. Here's where the time spent, which could have been put onto making more melee weapons, it went on an extremely janky and poor performing gun gimmick. Speaking about diversity as a whole, there's a second point here I want to bring up. It's a bit of a weird point to make, but I kind of want to throw it out there anyway just to see what you think. I think this game has a big problem with everything being devalued because of melee. You can get a gun in an arcane build and you can get them to do good damage, but it requires so much more forward thinking and planning in a game with no character respec, so it all just devolves down into melee. And don't get me wrong here, that's not the issue here, because you don't have to look that far to see a game which benefited from that straight narrow focus. Sekiro has the one weapon and the one moveset, and they went fucking bananas with it. You can see how pushing that simple concept and that laser tight focus on the one weapon, one moveset, you can see how that laser precision really paid off there. But here, they tried the bias and the narrow focus on melee, with features such as rally only working with melee and the lightning fast rollouts on melee weapons. But then, that whole experience is watered right down because they tried to throw a bunch of extra shit in there, which just gives you the illusion of a build choice here, when really having guns and stuff like arcane spells, it doesn't really incentivize an actual playstyle of that. Their existence is just to make melee better. Before I close out this segment, I just want to say I'm sure a comparison can be made to Dark Souls. Like, oh well, those games can just evolve into melee only too, so how's this different? It's different because in Dark Souls, you're picking up like 2 or 3 weapons to try out in every level, so you get like different experiences within that melee system. In Bloodborne, you'll get 2 or maybe 3 weapons to try, but in the whole playthrough, because you can't use the other 20 because they all required a pre-planned build for their specific stats with no respec and no incentive to level stuff like arcane, which half of the weapons belong to. But despite everything I've just said there, I do genuinely believe that having 2 or 3 weapons here for a full playthrough is more than enough to get fun out of it, especially with the game's combat. But what I'm saying is that it could have just been done so much better if they had just embraced that melee system that they were clearly going for with systems like the rally and the quick step. And that's not a problem because melee only can be fun. But what I'm saying is that it becomes a problem in a game where it tries to wear the illusion of there's a choice and there's much more than that. Yes, you can use guns and arcane, but they're only really there to make melee better. But the game's trying to sell you on the fact that no, they're their own standalone things. You can just do this, but no. Realistically, it's not like that. Like a lot of things in Bloodborne, the choice is there, but it's not really there. It's the illusion of choice. So the 2 previous things we covered are pretty major problems with this game, but looking past this, there are a bunch of smaller problems here that can just finish off any sort of excitement that I have for this game. First up, the blood vial system. If you aren't aware, the Bloodborne healing system is most similar to Demon Souls, where healing items are permanently consumed upon use, and to get more you have to buy them or you have to farm them. This is, and always has been, extremely tedious because you could be fighting a boss, getting really close but just losing just at the very end. Now the first thing on your mind right now is, right, get me back in there, I'm going to go in there and bite that boss's cock off. But no, you respawn and any sort of excitement that you had is now dead. You have to put everything on hold because now you have to go and farm blood vials. Towards the end of the game, however, this is no longer a problem, as you now have enough souls to just buy like 300 blood vials and then you can go from there. So yeah, I never really liked this whole system in Demon Souls or Bloodborne. However, at one point in the game, I think they actually managed to get this feeling right. Is that when you get to Ludwig's boss room here, just before you go into the boss room, there's this little guy and he always respawns there and he always drops 5 heals every time. I love that. because now there's a little top up every time you head in. Say for example you die and you respawn with 6 heals. You'll be like, right, nah, fuck that, I'm not even going to try. But with 11, it's like, oh, actually, it might be worth a go. I could maybe pull something off here. And I think that little system goes a long way. I really wish they put like one of these before every boss in Bloodborne, just to top you up every time, just by a little bit. It really goes a long way for the bossing experience. It really does. One thing for me, which I don't really see many people talking about, is the AI. And yep, all Souls games have really janky AI here. But for me, Bloodborne has always been just the most shit-town AI I've ever seen by far. Again, I don't really see that many people talking about this, so maybe it's just me being really unlucky. But for me at least, the AI in this game is just an absolute joke, and like not in the fun way. It's to the point where sometimes you can just stand still and the game breaks upon itself. There's a whole bunch of quality of life issues with the game being old. I think it's kind of unfair to judge a game on its limitations back in the day, but it is worth mentioning that yep, we are locked into a rough as fuck 30 FPS, and on top of that you've got a bunch of loading screen issues. Like if you want to go somewhere, you have to teleport back to the hub world and then teleport from there because of hardware limitations. And speaking of quality of life, level grinding. As I said before, it's really unfair to include any sort of like outside meta on a game in a review. But I know some of you guys love commenting about it, so fuck you guys. Say if we do include outside influences, well now we have to talk about the cum dungeon. Basically, if you don't know, if you walk right up to this tombstone, you go and talk to it and you say, come fucker, and then you go into the dungeon, wait here 10 seconds, and you get 83,000 souls. And you can repeat that as many times as you like. So now, it doesn't even matter if you fucked up your build or the healing flasks, because you have this now, which trivializes everything. This is kind of why I don't want to include outside sources, such as gun builds, as part of this review, because if we let that in, we also have to let this in, and that's just not fair. This last thing I want to say, again, is something really unfair to include in this review, but I think I just have to say it. As far as having a really annoying game experience, there's nothing more annoying than having a game to be a PlayStation 4 exclusive. A lot of people are not willing to buy a console just to play this, and the ones that do agree it's not really worth it. And it's such a shame, it really is, because Sony and PlayStation, they know people buy their consoles just to play this game. They absolutely know it. They're not idiots. What, do you honestly think the reason that this game has not been remade or ported yet is that they don't think they have the time or the audience to do it? Nah. They absolutely know that this game still shifts consoles to this day, and they've got us all by the fucking balls here, boys. They're in no rush to change that. Again, I think it's really unfair to have Sony being an absolute dickhead company about this game to affect how the game is. But you know what I mean, there's just so many little things, little problems here that make the whole gaming experience, even being able to play the fucker, just such a fucking hassle to go through. And for me, it just ends up killing any sort of excitement I have to play this. Okay, so at the start of this review, I said the main thing I wanted to try and do is to go back with an open mind and see if there are any opinions here can be changed after talking about them. And honestly, even though I have been quite purposefully negative here, I think it has changed my opinion. Don't get me wrong, I still think the world setting fucking stinks, but now I understand, at its core, it is a cool-ass gothic descent into madness theme. Yeah, even though I do feel like it's told by a 14-year-old on DeviantArt, it is a really cool and really unique concept for an RPG. I said how a big problem for a lot of people is the build diversity and being tunneled into a very specific and undiversified melee system. But hey, maybe if you treat it kind of like a watered-down Sekiro experience, I don't know, maybe it's still really fun in hand with the already amazing combat. So really thinking about it, honestly, I think I like this game more for reviewing it now. But the problem is, I still don't really care for it, even though I really want to now. And honestly, not gonna lie, I really do think it is the setting that just kills the game for me. It really does. When I really think about it, yeah, I can probably forgive the undiversified combat. It's still really fun. And the poor quality of life, fuck it, I play a bunch of old games, it's alright. But no, it really is just the setting for me. Actually, you know what? Fuck it. I think the best way to end this is to close this review out with a little thought experiment for you guys who really like this game for its setting, which I'm assuming is a lot of you. Right, try and imagine yourself, like me, where you really don't like this game's setting. Right, just think. If you take that all away, just forget about the setting, imagine the setting doesn't even exist. Just forget it. What are you left with? Well, you're left with a fantastic game and a fantastic combat system. But it's like, it's not a masterpiece because there's so many little things just holding it right back. The blood vial system, the jank 30 frames per second, the loading screens, the inconsistencies and focus and build and diversity. When you think about it like that, the game's just like so annoyingly close to masterpiece level. And now, I want you to bring back that setting and the world. For some, that's what's going to elevate it from so close to being a masterpiece to being a masterpiece. And then for some, like me, it just kills it on the spot. At the end of the day, the setting is going to be the thing that makes or breaks it for a lot of people. And if you choose to ignore the setting, I guess you're left with a flawed masterpiece.
Dear, what was it? The hunt? The blood? Or the horrible dream?